Picture this. It's October 2008. The entire financial system is collapsing. Banks are failing. Companies are going bankrupt. Your neighbors are losing their jobs, their homes, their retirement savings. Every single person with money is doing the same thing: selling, running, getting out, trying to save whatever they have left. The smartest investors on Wall Street, the ones with decades of experience, they're all heading for the exits. And then there's the 78-year-old guy in Omaha, Nebraska, Warren Buffett. And while everyone else is selling in a panic, while the world feels like it's ending, he's doing something that seems absolutely insane. He's buying. Not a little bit. Billions of dollars. He's writing checks to Goldman Sachs, General Electric, Bank of America, companies that everyone thinks might not survive the week. And people thought he'd lost his mind. They thought he was throwing his money away. But he wasn't panicking. He wasn't guessing. He was following a strategy. The same strategy he's used through 14 recessions. The same strategy that turned him into one of the richest people on earth. My name is Richard, and I teach what schools never taught us about money. I spend way too much obsessive research on financial education and why some people get rich effortlessly while others stay struggling their whole life. Make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe if this video helps you view money differently. Now, before we get into the topic, imagine you're Warren Buffett in 1963. You're a young investor still building your reputation. You wake up one morning and see the news. American Express, one of the most trusted names in finance, is in a massive scandal, something called the salad oil scandal. Their stock is plummeting. Everyone who owns it is dumping their shares as fast as possible. Your investor friends are calling you, warning you to stay away. It's over for American Express, they're saying. Don't touch it. And you're sitting there at your desk in Omaha reading the reports, doing the math, and you realize something nobody else sees. This scandal has nothing to do with the actual business. The credit card people love, still valuable. The brand people trust, still strong. So you make a decision that makes zero sense to everyone around you. You take 40% of your entire fund, everything you're managing, and you buy American Express stock while it's crashing. People think you're crazy. And a few years later, that one decision makes you millions. But here's where things get interesting. What if I told you that the exact moment when most people lose everything is the exact moment when Warren Buffett makes billions? What if the thing you're most afraid of, a recession, an economic collapse, a market crash, what if that's actually the biggest opportunity you'll ever have to build real wealth? See, Warren Buffett has lived through 14 recessions. 14! And every single time he does the exact same thing. And every single time he gets richer. Not by luck, not by accident, but by following a strategy that's so simple it sounds stupid when you first hear it. And today I'm going to break down that exact strategy step by step, the same strategy he used in 2008, the same strategy he used in 2000, the same strategy he's preparing to use right now for the next recession. Because here's the truth. A recession is coming. I don't know when. Nobody does, but it's coming, and you need to be ready. So let's get into it. You know, what's funny, everyone thinks Warren Buffett is a stock picker, like he just finds great companies and buys them. And yeah, he does that. But that's not his secret. That's not what makes him different. His real secret, the thing nobody talks about, he hoards cash. And I know what you're thinking. Richard, that sounds boring. Cash just sits there. It loses value to inflation. Why would a billionaire keep cash? Here's why this matters. And here's the consequence of getting this wrong. If you don't have cash saved when a recession hits, you're forced to be a seller. You need money for bills, for emergencies, for life. So when stocks are crashing and everything's on sale, you can't buy. Worse, you might have to sell at the worst possible time just to survive. But if you have cash, you get to be a buyer. You get to go shopping when everything's 50% off, 60% off, 70% off. That's the difference between people who get destroyed in recessions and people who get rich. So here's what Warren does, and here's what you need to do. He keeps massive amounts of cash sitting around doing nothing, just waiting. In 2008, right before the financial crisis, Berkshire Hathaway had over $40 billion in cash, just sitting there. People criticized him for it. Warren, you're wasting money. Inflation is eating that cash. Put it to work. But Warren knew something they didn't. He was waiting for the sale. Let me give you the numbers, real numbers. When the 2008 crisis hit, the S&P 500 fell from about 1,500 down to 700, cut in half. Companies like Goldman Sachs, one of the biggest banks in the world, their stock fell 70%, General Electric fell 80%. And while everyone else was panicking, while everyone else was selling everything they had just to get out, Warren was buying. He put $5 billion into Goldman Sachs, $3 billion into General Electric, billions more into other companies. And he could do that because he had the cash. He'd been saving it. He'd been waiting for this exact moment. Think about it like this. Imagine you love shopping at Target. You go there all the time, and one day you walk in and there's a sign. Everything in the store, 70% off, today only. What do? You load up. You buy everything you've been wanting because it's on sale. That's what a recession is for stocks. It's a sale, a massive, store-wide, everything must go sale. But here's the weird part. When stocks go on sale, most people do the opposite of what they do at Target. They run away, they sell, they panic. You need cash, not invested, not in stocks, not in crypto, actual cash sitting in a savings account. How much? At minimum, 6 months of your expenses. If you spend $3,000 a month to live, you need $18,000 in cash. If you spend $5,000 a month, you need $30,000. That's your survival fund. That's what keeps you from being forced to sell during a recession. But ideally, you want more. You want a separate pile of cash just for investing. Money you don't need, money you can deploy when stocks crash. Warren keeps billions. You don't need billions, but you do need something. Start today, not next month. Today, open a high-yield savings account. Ally Bank, Marcus by Goldman Sachs, whatever, doesn't matter. Just somewhere separate from your checking account. And every time you get paid, move money there first, before you pay bills, before you do anything. Pay yourself first, even if it's just $100, even if it's $50, it doesn't matter. The habit is what matters. And here's the key. You don't touch it, you don't spend it, you don't borrow from it because you really want that new PlayStation. It sits there, waiting. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, but Richard, what about inflation? Won't my cash lose value just sitting there? Yes, it will. Absolutely. And I don't care. Here's why. Keeping cash is like keeping a fire extinguisher in your kitchen. You're not using it every day. It's just sitting there under the sink. And technically, you're wasting that space. You could put something useful there. But when a fire breaks out, when oil catches flame on your stove, you're really glad you have that extinguisher. Cash is your financial fire extinguisher. It's your ammunition. It's your opportunity fund. And losing 2% or 3% a year to inflation is nothing compared to missing the opportunity to buy great investments at 50% off. I learned this lesson the hard way in 2020. When COVID hit and the market crashed in March, I had some cash saved. Not a ton, but some. And I bought stocks. Apple at $60, Microsoft at $150, Amazon at $1,800. Those same stocks. Within 2 years, they doubled, some tripled. But here's what kills me. I didn't have enough cash. I could have bought more. I should have bought more. But I'd spent the previous year keeping all my money invested because I was worried about inflation. That mistake cost me tens of thousands of dollars in missed gains. Don't make that mistake. Here's what nobody tells you about cash. It's not about the return on your money. It's about the return of your opportunities. When you have cash and everyone else is broke, you have power. You have options. You can buy when others can't. That's what Warren understands. That's what separates billionaires from regular people. It's not that they're smarter. It's that they're prepared, okay? So now you're building your cash reserves. You're saving every month. You've got your ammunition ready. But here's the problem, and this is where most people completely screw up. They have the cash, the recession hits, stocks go on sale, and they freeze. They don't know what to buy. They panic. They wait too long, and they miss the whole opportunity. So how do you avoid that? How do you know what to buy when everything's crashing? That brings us to Warren's second strategy. Let me tell you about a trick Warren uses that sounds so simple. You'll think I'm making it up. He keeps a list, a shopping list, like you'd make before going to the grocery store, except instead of milk and eggs, it's companies. Businesses he'd love to own, businesses he's studied, businesses he knows inside and out. And he makes this list years before he buys anything. Here's why this matters so much. When a recession hits, when the market's crashing, your brain doesn't work right. Fear takes over. Every news headline is telling you the world is ending. Your friends are panicking. Your portfolio is down 40%. And in that moment, if you're trying to research stocks, if you're trying to figure out what to buy, you're going to make terrible decisions. You'll either buy junk because it's cheap, or you'll freeze up and not buy anything at all. But if you've already done the research, if you already know exactly what you want to buy, you just execute. No thinking required, no emotions involved. You just follow the plan. So here's what Warren does. He researches companies constantly, not when he wants to buy them, all the time. He reads annual reports. He studies businesses. He figures out what they're worth. And when he finds a great company, a company he'd love to own, he puts it on his list. Then he waits, sometimes for years. He waits for the right price. And when that recession comes, when that company goes on sale, he already knows what it's worth. He already knows he wants it. He just buys it. Let me give you a real example, a famous one. In 1963, there was something called the salad oil scandal. I know, it sounds like something from a comedy movie, but it almost destroyed American Express. Here's what happened. American Express had a subsidiary that guaranteed some loans. Loans to a company that claimed to have millions of gallons of salad oil. Turns out they didn't. It was fraud. And American Express was on the hook for millions of dollars. The stock crashed, fell 50% in a few months. Everyone was selling. Everyone thought American Express was done. Except Warren. See, Warren had studied American Express years before this. He knew their business. He knew their credit card was popular. He knew their traveler's checks were everywhere. He knew people loved the brand. And he knew the scandal. It had nothing to do with the actual business. It was just a subsidiary, a side thing. So while everyone was panicking, Warren bought. He put 40% of his investment fund into American Express. 40% in one stock. Everyone thought he was insane, but he'd done his homework. He knew what he was doing. And that investment, it made him millions. Eventually, tens of millions. And he held it for decades. You need to make your own shopping list. Right now, today, a list of 10 to 15 companies you'd love to own, companies you understand, companies you use, companies you believe will be around in 20 years. Not random stocks, not whatever's trending on social media. Companies you actually know. And for each company, you need to figure out what price you'd want to buy it at. What's a good deal? What's a great deal? This is easier than you think. Step 1. Open your notes app on your phone right now. Seriously, do it. Step 2. Write down companies you use every single day. Companies you can't imagine living without. For me, that's Apple. I use my iPhone constantly. I have a MacBook, AirPods. I'm locked into their ecosystem. I can't see myself switching. That's Amazon. I order stuff from them at least once a week, sometimes more. They've made my life so much easier. That's Coca-Cola. I know. Soda's bad for you, but people love it. It's everywhere, in every restaurant, every gas station, every vending machine. That's not changing. Step 3, for each company, ask yourself, will this company exist in 20 years? Will people still use their products? If the answer is yes, it stays on the list. If you're not sure, cross it off. Step 4, this is the harder part. You need to research. Just basic stuff. What does the company do? How do they make money? Are they profitable? How much debt do they have? You don't need a finance degree for this. You can find all this information free on Yahoo Finance or just Google. Step 5, figure out what price makes sense. This is simple math. Look at what the stock is trading at now. Then ask yourself, if this fell 30% in a recession, would I want to buy it? If yes, write down that price. Now, I'm going to tell you something that might sound crazy. You're not going to buy at the perfect bottom. You're not going to time it perfectly. Nobody does, not even Warren. And that's okay. Think of it like this. Imagine you want to buy a house. You find one you love. The seller wants $400,000. You think it's worth maybe $350,000. So you wait. You hope the price drops. And it does. It goes down to $360,000. Now, you could wait longer. Maybe it'll drop to $340,000, maybe $330,000. Who knows? But while you're waiting, trying to get the perfect price, someone else buys it, and now it's gone. You missed it. That's what happens when you try to time the bottom perfectly. You wait too long. The opportunity passes you by. Warren's philosophy? When something's on sale, when it's clearly cheap, buy some. If it goes down more, buy more. If it keeps going down, keep buying more. That way, you're averaging in. You're not trying to be perfect. You're just taking advantage of the sale. And I'll give you another example from my own life. In March 2020, when COVID crashed the market, I had my list ready. I'd been working on it for months, maybe even a year. And when everything fell, I knew exactly what I wanted. Microsoft, Disney, Visa, Starbucks. I didn't hesitate. I didn't second guess. I just bought. And you know what? I didn't buy at the bottom. The bottom was March 23rd. I bought some stuff on March 18th, some on March 20th, some on April 2nd. Did I get the perfect price? Nope. But did I get a great price? Absolutely. And because I had my list ready, because I'd done the research beforehand, I didn't freeze up. I didn't panic. I just executed. Here's the thing that most people miss. The hard part of investing isn't the buying. It's the preparing. Anyone can click a button and buy a stock. That's easy. The hard part is doing the boring research when nothing's happening. When the market's fine, when there's no crisis, that's when you build your list. That's when you do the work. So when the crisis comes, you're ready. You don't have to think, you just act. And that's what separates people like Warren from everyone else. He's always preparing, always researching, always ready. All right, so you've got your cash saved. You've got your shopping list ready. You know what you want to buy and at what price. You're feeling good. You're feeling prepared. But there's one thing that can destroy all of this. One mistake that can wipe you out completely, no matter how well you've prepared. And Warren avoids this mistake like it's poison. He won't touch it. He won't go near it. What is it? Debt, borrowed money, leverage. And if you don't understand why this is so dangerous, the next section might save your entire financial future. I'm going to tell you about the smartest people in the world losing everything. Literally everything. Nobel Prize winners, mathematicians, geniuses, people with IQs higher than you and me combined. And they lost it all because of one mistake. One thing that Warren refuses to do. Here's the deal with borrowed money. It makes you feel like a genius when things are going up, because you're making money on money you don't even have. Let's say you have $10,000. You could buy $10,000 worth of stock, or you could borrow another $10,000 and buy $20,000 worth of stock. If the stock goes up 20%, you don't make $2,000. You make $4,000. You just doubled your profit. Man, that feels good. That feels smart. But here's what happens when the recession hits, when stocks fall. If stocks fall 20%, you don't lose $2,000. You lose $4,000, and now you're not just down 20%. You're down 40% of your own money. And if stocks fall 50%, you're wiped out completely. You lost everything. Plus, you still owe the $10,000 you borrowed. That's the danger. Leverage multiplies your gains, but it also multiplies your losses. Warren's rule is simple. Never use borrowed money to invest. Never. Not margin, not loans, not credit cards, nothing. Only invest money you actually have, money you don't need, money you won't miss if it disappears for a few years. That's it. That's the rule. Let me tell you about long-term capital management. This is a true story from 1998. These guys were legends. They had Nobel Prize winners on their team. Myron Scholes and Robert Merton, who literally won the Nobel Prize in economics. They had the smartest models, the most sophisticated algorithms, the best risk management. On paper, they couldn't fail, and for a while they didn't. They made incredible returns, 40% one year, 50% another year. How? Leverage. They borrowed massive amounts of money. For every $1 they had, they borrowed $30, sometimes $40. So when their bets went right, they made unbelievable money. But then something happened. The Russian government defaulted on its debt. It was unexpected. It broke their models, and suddenly, their investments started falling. Not by a little, by a lot. And because they'd borrowed so much money, they got margin calls. The lenders wanted their money back. Now! So they had to sell. They had to sell everything at terrible prices at the worst possible time. And the fund collapsed. Almost took down the entire financial system with it. The Federal Reserve had to organize a bailout. Smart people, the smartest, didn't matter. Leverage killed them. Here's what Warren understands that most people don't. Investing is about surviving long enough to win. It's about staying in the game. If you use leverage, you might win faster. You might get rich quicker. But you also might get wiped out. Completely. Game over. And if you get wiped out, you can't invest anymore. You can't take advantage of the next opportunity. You're done. But if you don't use leverage, the worst that can happen is your stocks go down. They might go down a lot, but you can hold on, you can wait, you can buy more. And eventually, they come back. They always come back. Warren says his favorite holding period is forever, but you can only hold forever if you don't get forced to sell. And leverage is what forces you to sell. Margin accounts. This is when your broker lets you borrow money to buy more stocks. Seems great until the market drops and you get a margin call. Personal loans to invest. I've seen people do this. They take out a $20,000 personal loan, put it in stocks, thinking they'll pay it back with the profits. Terrible idea. Credit cards. This should be obvious, but people do it. They buy stocks on a credit card at 20% interest. Don't do this. Ever.